What if tonight, as you close your eyes and let the weight of the day dissolve into quiet, you could imagine the sky above you not as something familiar, but as a gateway to the unknown. Above the ordinary stars, beyond the moon, and the comforting circle of planets we know, something has entered, a visitor from outside. A stranger, cold, silent, and yet glowing faintly as it drifts into our solar system. Its name, given to it only recently, is 3I, divided by Atlas. The name may sound technical, a string of letters and numbers, but hidden in those few characters is a remarkable truth. The I stands for interstellar, meaning this object has traveled not from somewhere within the sun's dominion, but from the far reaches between the stars. It is the third such visitor ever identified by humanity. The first, in 2017, was called Oumuamua, an enigmatic shard that slipped through space, tilting and tumbling in ways that defied simple explanation. The second, in 2019, was 2I divided by Borisov, a comet that looked more familiar, its tail streaming like a banner across the void. And now, the third, 3I divided by Atlas. Imagine it an icy fragment, older than our world, moving faster than anything we can truly grasp. It has crossed gulfs of emptiness beyond our imagining. The time it has taken to arrive is not measured in centuries or millennia, but in epochs, in the deep time of galaxies turning. Its voyage began before there were humans to look up and wonder, perhaps before there were even trees on Earth. When astronomers first spotted its faint glimmer in July of 2025, the realization was like a ripple through the scientific community. They were not simply watching another comet, not another familiar icy body circling the sun for the 1000th time. This was new. This was alien in the most literal sense. It was confirmation, again, that our solar system is not a closed bubble, but a crossroad in the larger galaxy. Think of it. As you lie here, safe and still, somewhere far above you, this object is sliding inward. It does not roar like a rocket or blaze like a meteor. It moves silently, as all things do in space, its speed unimaginable, yet its motion imperceptibly slow to the naked eye. Against the backdrop of the stars it creeps, an intruder whose presence we know only because of the sensitive eyes of telescopes pointed skyward. And what secrets might it carry? Every comet, even those that belong to our sun, is like a time capsule. Inside their frozen cores are relics of creation ices, dusts, and organic molecules preserved for billions of years. But 3I divided by Atlas is not from here. Its atoms were forged in other furnaces, its ice shaped under different stars. To study it is to open a window into another neighborhood of the galaxy. Pause and imagine that. A speck of dust blown from a distant shore, a messenger carrying in its chemistry the flavors of another star's nursery. What does it smell like, taste like, if such questions could even be asked? Would its ice contain water, the same water that fills our oceans, or stranger compounds, frozen in a chemistry alien to Earth? Could it even, in some far-fetched but tantalizing way, carry the seeds of life, the kind of molecules that once helped awaken biology on our own world? Astronomers will not touch it directly. It is too far, too faint, too fleeting. But they can listen to its light. By splitting its faint glow into spectra rainbows of information, they can read the signatures of the gases escaping as it warms. Carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, water vapor, maybe something more exotic. Each line of color is like a clue scribbled on the margin of the universe's notebook. And yet, as wondrous as the science is, there is also mystery. Because every interstellar visitor we've seen so far has held something puzzling. Oumuamua, with its elongated shape and strange acceleration. Borisov, with its unusual chemistry. And now 3I divided by Atlas, with a brightness and path that suggest it may not behave exactly as expected. Already, Theories multiply. Already, whispers in both the scientific literature and the public imagination begin. What if it is more than ice and dust? What if? For now, though, it is enough to picture it, a lone traveler entering our realm, as if a stranger had walked quietly into a village square at night, cloaked and hooded, carrying a satchel of unknown objects. You don't yet know who they are, where they've come from, or what they want, but you cannot look away. This is 3I divided by Atlas. It is a visitor from the deep, slipping past Saturn's invisible frontier on its way toward the Sunday. It asks no permission. It offers no explanation. It simply arrives. And as you drift towards sleep, let your mind follow it. Picture the blackness of space, the faint trail of vapor forming around its frozen heart, the stars wheeling silently behind. Somewhere in that infinite darkness, something utterly ancient, utterly foreign, is approaching us now. Perhaps it comes bearing only silence and dust. Perhaps it comes bearing questions we have not yet learned how to ask. For tonight, it is enough to know this: we are not alone in the sense we once thought. The solar system is not a closed story. It has visitors. It has strangers. And one of them, right now, is here. Imagine for a moment that 3I divided by Atlas is not the first stranger to wander into our solar system. It is, in fact, the third. Like any story of travelers, there are echoes of those who came before, footsteps in the sand, ripples in the water, the faint memory of an earlier visitor. To understand the significance of 3I divided by Atlas, we must listen to those echoes. The first was discovered in 2017. It was given the Hawaiian name Oumuamua, meaning a messenger from afar arriving first. Its appearance was brief, a fleeting brush with mystery. Astronomers noticed it only after it had already swung around the sun and was leaving us behind. It was unlike anything we had seen before. Not a comet in the traditional sense, with a glowing tail. Not an asteroid, which is usually rocky and inert. Instead, it was a shard, elongated like a giant cigar or perhaps a pancake, depending on which measurements you trusted. It tumbled as it traveled, reflecting sunlight in strange patterns, as if it were a shard of polished metal. And then there was its motion. Oumuamua did not move exactly as gravity predicted. It accelerated slightly as it left the sun, as though something unseen was pushing it. Some said it was the outgassing of ices, like a comet shedding vapor. Others, noticing the lack of a visible tail, speculated it might be something different, something artificial, perhaps even a relic of another civilization's technology. That idea captured the imagination of the public, even if it made scientists uneasy. 2 years later, in 2019, came another. 2I, divided by Borisov, was discovered by an amateur astronomer in Crimea, Gennady Borisov. This one looked more familiar, almost comfortingly so. It had the classic appearance of a comet, an icy core, and a long streaming tail. It shed dust and gas as it raced past the sun, glowing in a way we understood. Yet even here, there was strangeness. Its chemical makeup seemed slightly unusual compared to comets born in our system. In particular, it had more carbon monoxide than expected, suggesting it formed in a colder, darker nursery than ours. A cousin, perhaps, but one raised in a very different home. Now comes 3I divided by Atlas. The echoes of Oumuamua and Borisov still resonate. Together, the three form a new chapter in astronomy. For centuries, we believed our solar system was largely self-contained. The planets and comets we knew were born from the same swirling cloud of dust and gas, bound to the Sunday, but these interstellar interlopers prove otherwise. Our little corner of the galaxy is not isolated. It is open. Things pass through. strangers arrive. Think of what that means. The stars are not just distant points of light. They are linked by invisible highways of debris, by messengers cast off from their nurseries. The dust of one system can wander into another. The boundaries we draw between here and there are not so firm. We live, in truth, in an open cosmos. And so, when 3I divided by Atlas was spotted, astronomers immediately placed it in context. They remembered Oumuamua, strange and silent. They remembered Borisov, glowing and more familiar. And they asked, which echo will this one follow? Will it be enigmatic, defying explanation? Or will it be ordinary, comforting in its cometary glow? Or, perhaps most exciting of all, will it be something new entirely, something that forces us to expand our imagination? Picture yourself drifting into sleep, listening to this tale of 3 visitors. Each one enters the solar system like a character stepping onto a stage. Oumuamua, the mysterious wanderer, its name itself telling us it was the first messenger. Borisov, the traveler who looked more like a comet but carried the scent of a different homeland. And now, Atlas, the third, whose story is still unfolding before our eyes. There is a rhythm to this. The first confuses, the second reassures, the third perhaps will reveal. Like the beginning of a symphony, the first notes are scattered, exploratory. The second repeats, more familiar. The third sets the theme. Perhaps that is what 3I divided by Atlas will do. Set the theme for how we understand interstellar objects, not as rare flukes, but as a natural part of our cosmic environment. Already, whispers begin. Some astronomers point out that Atlas, unlike Oumuamua, shows a clear coma, a fuzzy halo of gas and dust. This makes it easier to study. Others note that its brightness does not match predictions perfectly, hinting that its behavior might not be simple. We are caught, again, between comfort and mystery. And as you rest, let your mind play with the possibilities. Imagine that every star we see has its own population of comets and asteroids, and that some of those are occasionally nudged free, set adrift into the interstellar sea. Imagine them traveling for millions of years, silent seeds of matter, until they pass through a system like ours. Each one carries chemistry, perhaps even organic molecules. Each one a story waiting to be read. Oumuamua was like a letter written in code, mysterious and brief. Borisov was more like a postcard from a cousin, recognizable but distant. Atlas? Perhaps it is a book, its pages opening slowly as we turn them with our telescopes. And so the echoes continue. 3 messengers, 3 glimpses into the wider galaxy. And you, lying here tonight, listening to their stories, are part of the rarest moment of all. For all of human history, we saw none. Then, within a single decade, we have seen 3. A reminder that we are not just earthbound, not just solar-bound, but participants in a grander cosmic dance. Let the echoes fade into your dreams. Hear the faint tumbling of Oumuamua, the streaming glow of Borisov, and the quiet, steady approach of Atlas. Together, they are telling us something. Something about distance, something about connection, something about the galaxy itself. And tomorrow night, or the night after, as you listen again, the stranger's story will continue. Before it was given a name, before astronomers turned their instruments to follow its faint trace of light, 3I, divided by Atlas, had already been traveling for longer than we can easily imagine. It is easy to think of it as arriving now, as if it had just set out on some recent voyage. But the truth is far grander. Its journey began millions, perhaps billions of years ago, when something nudged it free from its original home. Picture a distant star system, one of countless suns scattered across the galaxy. Around that star, just as around our own, there were icy bodies circling, fragments left over from the birth of worlds. Somewhere in that system, long ago, something happened. Perhaps a planet's gravity tugged too strongly. Perhaps two objects collided. Perhaps the slow gravitational music of passing stars altered the balance. Whatever the cause, this small comet-like body was thrown outward. It gained just enough speed to escape, to break free from the gravity of its parent star. And so it began its exile. Exile is the right word. To leave a star is to lose your warmth, to wander into a darkness that stretches forever. Imagine it drifting into that void, the light of its home star fading to a pinprick, the heat of its birthplace falling away. What must it mean for a fragment of ice and dust, hardened in a different nursery, to surrender itself to the endless night? For millions of years, perhaps longer, it drifted in silence. No sun warmed it. No planet pulled at it. It became a ghost, a seed cast into the fields of the galaxy. This is the long journey in. To reach us, Atlas did not follow a road, for there are no roads in space. Instead, it followed probability, randomness, and chance. The galaxy is a vast ocean, and interstellar space is its most silent sea. For ages, it was only one more piece of driftwood carried by unseen currents. Now imagine that journey as you lie in your bed tonight, listening to the hum of your own quiet surroundings. In the time it took your ancestors to build the pyramids, Atlas was still moving. In the time before mammals, before trees, before land plants, Atlas was still moving. Even as our Earth formed from molten rock and dust, Atlas was already on its way, though at distances so immense we could never have imagined it. Its story is not measured in centuries or millennia, but in the turning of galaxies, the slow spiral arms sweeping through the stars. And yet, against all odds, its path carried it here. Out of billions of directions it could have gone, countless regions of empty space it might have wandered into forever, this one fragment is crossing our solar system. It is not chance we notice it, but it is chance that it passed close enough to notice at all. How many others slip through unseen, never crossing the field of our telescopes? How many whispers in the dark have we missed? Astronomers try to reconstruct its orbit backward in time. They chart its hyperbolic path, running simulations that trace its trajectory outward into the galaxy. But soon the calculations lose precision. A passing star, a hidden mass of dust, a faint gravitational nudge from unseen forces, any of these could have shifted its course during the eons of wandering. What they know is only this: it comes from the interstellar deep. It is not ours. It belongs to a story larger than our Sunday. There is humility in that realization. We often think of the solar system as the stage, and of ourselves as the main actors. But Atlas reminds us that the galaxy is full of motion, and that we are only one set of players among countless others. It has been traveling far longer than humanity has existed. We are not its destination. We are simply a brief stop along its path. As it enters our solar system, something remarkable happens. For the first time in its long exile, Atlas feels the warmth of a star. Ice that has been frozen for ages begins to sublimate, releasing gas and dust in delicate streams. What was once invisible now begins to glow. Its coma forms like a faint halo, a crown of light born from centuries of darkness. To our telescopes, it is a blur, faint and ghostly. But to imagine it closely is to see a rebirth, a wanderer warming its face after an endless winter. Perhaps that is the beauty of this story. 3. I, divided by Atlas, has spent lifetimes in silence, unseen and unknown, and only now, in our fleeting moment of watching, does it shine. Only as it passes near our sun does it tell us anything of itself. We are given a brief chance to listen before it drifts away again, gone forever into the dark. And so its long journey in is not just about distance. It is about time, exile, and return. It is about the mystery of how something so small can travel so far, and about the strange fortune that allows us to glimpse it now. As you breathe slowly, perhaps ready to slip into dreams, imagine that black ocean of interstellar space. Imagine one small fragment, icy and silent, drifting for millions of years. No company, no light, no sound, just motion. Forward, always forward. And then at last imagine it encountering our sun, our earth, our telescopes, and our watching eyes. A stranger approaches, yes, but also a survivor, carrying within it the memory of another world. There is a moment, fragile and fleeting, when the invisible becomes visible. For millions of years, three eye divided by Atlas had drifted unseen, a cold shadow crossing an ocean of silence. But then on a quiet night in July 2025, the first glimpse of light was caught. A faint signal, almost lost among the background stars, flickered on the detector of a telescope. What had been absent from human awareness was suddenly here. Imagine the astronomers at their consoles, scanning images pixel by pixel. Most of the time, the dots of light are familiar. Stars, galaxies, the occasional known asteroid. But this time, something moved differently. Something traced a path that no catalogue contained. At first, perhaps it seemed like a smudge, a mistake, a trick of the software. Yet frame by frame, the truth emerged. There was a new traveler in the sky. They named it Atlas, after the survey system that discovered it, Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System. A mouthful of a name, designed for practicality, not poetry. Yet the irony is striking. Atlas, the titan of Greek myth, condemned to hold the heavens on his shoulders, now lending his name to a visitor that itself carries the weight of distant stars in its icy core. The first glimpse of light revealed only a faint glow, but to astronomers, that glow was a revelation. It was not the steady pinpoint of a star, nor the neat trajectory of a planet. It was fuzzy, indistinct, surrounded by a halo. That halo, the coma told the story. Sunlight was already beginning to warm its frozen surface, releasing gas and dust. The interstellar traveler had awakened. Think of the fragility of that moment. A signal so faint that without the right instruments, it would have been invisible. A whisper against the cosmic background, easily missed. How many others like it pass unseen every year, every century? Yet here was one we had noticed, one whose light we could follow. It is a reminder that discovery is not always about grandeur. Sometimes it is about attentiveness, about noticing the quiet anomalies that slip through the ordinary. The glow of Atlas's coma carried more than beauty, it carried information. By studying its light, astronomers could begin to guess at its composition. Hydrogen cyanide, carbon monoxide, water vapor, perhaps complex organic molecules. Each element absorbed and emitted light in a particular way, leaving spectral fingerprints. From those fingerprints, a picture began to form. Here, drifting through our system, was matter born in another star's nursery, a sample from a place we cannot reach, delivered to us by chance. Pause and imagine that glow. It is not bright like the moon, not even like the faintest star you can see with your naked eye. It is subtle, a soft blur barely distinguishable from noise. And yet, to those who knew how to read it, it was a lantern from another world. In the weeks that followed, telescopes across the earth turned their gaze to this stranger. The first glimpse of light had been only the opening of a curtain. As the comet moved inward, the curtain widened. Its coma expanded, its tail stretched out, pushed by the solar wind. Photons traveled millions of kilometers, carrying with them the story of ices vaporizing after an eternity in darkness. There is something profoundly moving about this. For ages beyond counting, Atlas had no light, no witness. Its ices were locked away, untouched. Then, as it approached our star, it began to shine, and in the same moment, human eyes found it. Two awakenings at once. the comets, and ours. To you, lying here in the quiet, this can be a meditation. Imagine being that object, frozen and forgotten, then suddenly feeling warmth, suddenly glowing, suddenly being seen. Perhaps it is not unlike the moments in our own lives when something dormant awakens, when we are recognized after long invisibility. The first glimpse of light is not just a scientific event. It is a reminder that the universe is alive, with stories waiting to be noticed. Each faint glow could be the beginning of a new chapter. Each speck in the dark might hold secrets from far away. For astronomers, the work was just beginning, tracking its motion, refining its orbit, predicting its path. For poets and dreamers, the work was different. To wonder what it meant. To wonder if these interstellar visitors are part of a larger pattern, a cosmic conversation. To wonder whether Atlas, like its predecessors, is telling us something about the nature of reality that we have not yet learned to hear. And so the story of three, I, divided by Atlas, truly began with light, not with a roar, not with a shockwave, but with the gentlest shimmer, almost too faint to notice. A glimmer that carried across unimaginable distances, a signal that whispered, I am here. As you drift further toward sleep, hold that image in your mind, a small halo of light blooming around a frozen heart, drifting quietly through the dark. The first glimpse of light, fragile but undeniable, the moment when a stranger becomes part of our story. Every object in the solar system has a path, an orbit drawn by the invisible pull of the Sunday. The planets circle in nearly perfect ellipses. The comets bound to our star follow long, stretched ovals, returning again and again after centuries in the dark. But three I divided by Atlas is different. Its path is not an ellipse. It is not closed, not bound, not destined to return. It follows instead a curve called a hyperbola, a shape that tells us with certainty that this is a one-way journey. Imagine holding a stone in your hand. If you toss it upward, it will arc and fall back, caught by Earth's gravity. If you throw harder, it goes higher, but still falls. Only if you throw it with enough speed escape velocity does it leave Earth forever. The same is true on a cosmic scale. Most comets and asteroids do not have enough speed to escape the sun's grasp. They may wander far, but they always return. 3 I, divided by Atlas, however, is different. It was already moving fast, impossibly fast, long before it reached us. Its speed is greater than the sun can ever slow. Astronomers plot its course like a line drawn across the solar system. It swoops in, bends slightly around the sun, and then heads back out, never to be seen again. The hyperbolic orbit is the mathematical signature of an interstellar visitor. It is proof that this object does not belong here. Its home is elsewhere, among the distant stars. There is something haunting about this, a parable of impermanence. No matter how closely we study it, no matter how carefully we chart its light, it will not linger. Its path is that of a guest who enters, bows briefly, and leaves without farewell. The planets are family, bound forever to the sun's fire. Atlas is only a passerby. Picture it as a curve against the backdrop of space, an open arc, wide and graceful, bending near the sun but never closing. To mathematicians, the hyperbola is elegant, its arms stretching out to infinity. To dreamers, it is the shape of escape, the geometry of freedom. To astronomers, it is evidence. The numbers cannot lie. Only an object born beyond the sun's reach could move this way. The hyperbolic path also means something else. Time with Atlas is limited. Each night it grows brighter as it nears, but each night also brings us closer to goodbye. It is as though we are watching a play performed in passing, a story whose actors will never return for another performance. Once its arc carries it back outward, The solar system will never see it again. For you, lying quietly in the dark, this can be a gentle meditation. Think of the paths we all follow, some circular, returning to the same places, the same faces. Others more like Atlas, one-time encounters that cross our lives briefly and then move on. Both are beautiful. Both have meaning. Astronomers calculate its exact speed, tens of kilometers per second, enough to cover the distance from Earth to the Moon in a few hours. Numbers that make sense only in theory, because in our human scale they are unimaginable. To us, Atlas creeps slowly across the stars. To space itself, it is a streak of urgency. And yet, despite its speed, its passing through our system is not rushed. It will take months to swing around the Sun and depart. During that time, telescopes will watch, instruments will measure, and imaginations will wander. The hyperbolic path gives us the gift of certainty. It will not crash into Earth. It will not be captured by Jupiter. It will not loop endlessly. Instead, it will pass, and we will witness. There is poetry in knowing the trajectory so precisely. We cannot know its birthplace with certainty, nor its future destination, but the curve it draws in our sky is exact. It is the paradox of astronomy, mystery and precision, hand in hand. So as you drift towards sleep, imagine that curve traced across the darkness, a path that begins far away, brushes close to our star, and then opens again into the void, a hyperbola, a signature of exile and escape, a reminder that not everything that enters our lives is meant to stay. And yet how luminous, how meaningful it can be, even in passing. When we speak of comets, we often speak of their brilliance, the tails that sweep across the sky, the luminous comas that flare like ghostly crowns. But beneath that beauty lies something quieter, more fragile. Comets are whispers of ice and dust, tiny, ancient archives of the cosmos. And three, divided by Atlas, drifting into our solar system from unimaginable distances, carries whispers not of this sun, but of another. Think of what a comet truly island. Beneath the glowing haze and dramatic tales, it is simply a nucleus, a lump of frozen ices mixed with rock and dust. Small enough to vanish into the palm of imagination, yet ancient enough to predate worlds. A comet is matter left over from creation, preserved in deep freeze. It has never melted, never boiled, never been reshaped by the heat of a star until now. Astronomers studying three, divided by Atlas, wonder about its composition. Will its ices resemble those of comets born in our solar system? Water ice, carbon dioxide, ammonia, methane. These are the familiar ingredients of our local comets. But Atlas comes from elsewhere. Perhaps its chemistry will be slightly different, flavored by the environment of another star's nursery. Perhaps it will carry an abundance of carbon monoxide, like Borisov did, hinting at a birthplace in a colder region of space. Or perhaps it will hold exotic compounds rare in our system, tiny traces of an alien alchemy. Every time sunlight touches its surface, molecules are released. They drift outward, scattering into the coma, glowing faintly as they interact with solar radiation. To astronomers with spectrographs, these molecules are signatures, tiny voices in the dark, hydrogen cyanide, whispering of chemical pathways that could lead to life. Formaldehyde, methanol, acetylene, all clues, all messages. The light from Atlas is not just illumination, it is communication. As you listen now, imagine each grain of dust that Atlas exhales. These grains are not new. They were forged in the disk of matter around a star, long vanished from its sight. Each speck is older than our civilization, older than Earth's forests, older even than Earth itself. And now, those grains drift into our solar system, carried like letters blown on the wind. They land not in our hands, but in our telescopes, where we can read their faint messages. And what do they whisper? They whisper of beginnings. Comets are thought to be seeds, carriers of water and organics, deliverers of possibility. Some scientists believe Earth's oceans were filled, in part, by comets. Some believe the molecules that sparked life arrived this way too. If that is true, then Atlas is a seed from another garden, drifting into ours. Whether it carries the same potential or something stranger, we may never know. But the possibility lingers, like the aftertaste of a dream. Picture the nucleus itself, hidden at the center of that glowing haze, dark, irregular, perhaps only a few kilometers across. A body pitted with ancient scars, the record of collisions and fractures from long ago. Beneath its crust, the ices lie dormant, waiting for warmth. As the sun touches it, geysers of vapor burst forth, carrying dust into the coma. Each eruption is like a sigh, a soft exhalation after ages of silence. And still, so much is hidden. We will never send a spacecraft to meet Atlas. It is too far, too swift. We must learn what we can from the whispers of light and dust it leaves behind. To study such an object is to accept humility. We cannot touch it, cannot hold it, cannot dissect it. We can only listen carefully to the signals it gives us, fleeting and fragile. As you lie here, drifting closer to sleep, let your imagination trace these whispers, dust motes drifting through space, carrying chemistry older than Earth. Ices sublimating into vapor, releasing secrets locked away since before our sun was born. Each molecule is like a note in a cosmic symphony, faint but resonant, carrying across the void. And if you wonder why it matters, why astronomers peer so intently at these faint smudges of light, remember this: every comet is a story. Every grain of dust tells us where it was born, what conditions shaped it, what elements it carries. To piece together those stories is to piece together the history of the galaxy itself. So when Atlas whispers, we lean in. We let the whispers of ice and dust guide our questions. We let them remind us that we are part of a larger narrative, that our solar system is not unique, but part of a vast web of creation and exchange. Matter moves. Worlds are seeded. Life, perhaps, is not confined to one place. And tomorrow night, as you drift again into dreams, remember that out there, far above the clouds, Atlas is still whispering. Its coma expands, its dust drifts, its secrets spill into the solar wind. Some will be read, some will be lost, but all of them are gifts, carried across an ocean of stars, delivered to us by chance. A whisper, yes, but sometimes a whisper is enough to change the way we listen to the universe. When we picture a comet, most of us think of its tail a streak of light drawn across the heavens. But a comet's most intimate feature, the one that first betrays its awakening, is the coma. It is a halo, a luminous shroud of gas and dust, glowing faintly as it surrounds the nucleus. And with 3 I divided by Atlas, this glow is more than beauty. It is the comet, speaking at last, after eons of silence. Imagine the nucleus itself, a dark fragment, only a few kilometers across, invisible to our eyes. On its own, it would remain hidden forever, but as the sun's rays touch it, ices buried in its surface begin to sublimate, changing instantly from solid to gas. Those gases carry dust grains outward, creating a thin atmosphere around the comet. That atmosphere is the coma, a cocoon of breath, exhaled into space. From Earth, we cannot see the nucleus directly. We see the coma. It is our only window into the comet's inner life. To astronomers, this halo is not just a blur of light. It is information, chemistry, mystery. Spectrographs spread the glow into rainbows, revealing the fingerprints of molecules, water vapor, carbon dioxide, hydrogen cyanide, perhaps organic compounds stranger still. The coma is the comet's voice, and we are finally close enough to listen. Pause for a moment, lying here in the dark. Picture that halo, not sharp and bright, but diffuse, like a candle flame seen through frosted glass. Its glow is subtle, delicate, and yet it expands thousands of kilometers around the nucleus, a fragile veil, luminous against the blackness of space. It is beautiful not because it blazes, but because it breathes. The coma of 3, I divided by Atlas, is also a paradox. It reveals and conceals at once. It gives us the data we crave, yet hides the nucleus from view. We long to see the core, the very heart of this traveler from another star, but it is cloaked, wrapped in its own exhalations. The more active the coma, the harder it is to glimpse what lies inside. This irony is common with comets. The very act of becoming visible makes the secret harder to know. And yet, that glow stirs something deep. We know it is ephemeral. The coma exists only while the comet is near a star. Out in interstellar space, Atlas was dark, silent, naked. Only now, in its brief encounter with the sun, does it reveal this veil of light. For most of its existence, no eyes have seen it. For most of its journey, it was a shadow. Only now, in this small moment, does it shine. Think of it as a metaphor. Sometimes we carry within us long silences, years of invisibility, and only when warmth reaches us do we begin to glow. The coma of Atlas is that moment of awakening, a fragile bloom of presence before fading again. Astronomers know that comas are not uniform. Jets of gas erupt from cracks in the surface, creating structures and fans within the haze. Sometimes, spiral patterns emerge, like breath exhaled in swirls. Already, some telescopes hint at asymmetries in Atlas's coma, suggestions that its nucleus is irregular, perhaps fractured, perhaps venting unevenly. These details matter, but they also enchant. Each asymmetry is a fingerprint, a sign that this is not just another comet, but an individual, a personality. As you breathe slowly, imagine that halo shimmering in the void. Imagine sunlight filtering through grains of dust, scattering into colors too faint for our eyes but visible to instruments. Imagine molecules flying free, carrying with them the history of another star's nursery. To drift into sleep with that image is to rest within a cosmic lullaby. The glow of the coma is not eternal. As Atlas continues its hyperbolic path, it will eventually leave the sun's warmth behind. The coma will shrink. The halo will fade. The nucleus will become silent again, a cold shard sliding into darkness. The light we see now is temporary, fragile, a flare in the night that will not last. And that impermanence makes it all the more precious. So let us linger on it. Let us savor the glow while it is here. A halo around a stranger, a crown of light around a visitor from afar. The coma is both shield and gift, mystery and revelation. It is the moment when a comet becomes visible, the moment when silence becomes song. And tomorrow, as you listen again, remember this. Somewhere above, 3. I, divided by Atlas, is glowing still, breathing out its veil of dust and gas, whispering its secrets in light. For us, for now, that is enough. When most people think of comets, they think of the tail long, shimmering, like a brushstroke of light across the canvas of night. For 3, I divided by Atlas, as for all comets, the tail is not an ornament, but a natural consequence of physics. And yet, it is also a symbol, a gesture that tells a story in silence. A comet's tail always points away from the sunday, not behind it, like the smoke trail of a rocket, not marking where it has been, but rather pointing outward, pushed by the solar wind. This is one of the most surprising truths about comets. The tail does not trace the path of the traveler, but the invisible pressure of light and particles streaming from the sunday. It is as though the comet carries a flag, not to mark its journey, but to reveal the power of the star it passes. For 3I divided by Atlas, this tale is both familiar and foreign. Familiar, because it behaves as our comets do, dust and gas stretched into luminous streamers. Foreign, because the dust within it is alien, made from elements and molecules born around a distant star. Imagine those grains, fragments of another nursery, now caught in our sun's breath, flowing outward into our solar system. They may drift for centuries before colliding with something, perhaps even falling into our skies as meteor dust. A gift, uninvited, but real, from another world. There are actually 2 tails, the dust tail and the ion tail. The dust tail shines with reflected sunlight, wide and curved, graceful as a veil in the wind. The ion tail, thinner and straighter, glows with the faint light of excited gases pointing directly along the magnetic lines carried by the solar wind. Together, they make the comet luminous, a dual banner unfurling in the void. Astronomers watching 3I divided by Atlas see in its tail more than beauty. They see data, information. The length, the brightness, the shape of the tail all tell them about the grains of dust, the rate of outgassing, the interaction of alien molecules with the sun's radiation. Every shimmer, every curve, is a code to be deciphered. But to you, lying here in stillness, the tale can be something more poetic. Imagine it not as a stream of gas, but as a story unrolling behind the comet, a scroll of light written as it passes. Wherever Atlas travels, it leaves behind a mark, not of where it has been, but of what it island. Its path is one thing, its tail another, 2 realities, overlapping but distinct. There is a kind of humility in the way the tail points. It always gestures outward, away from the sun, as though bowing, as though yielding. The comet is not in control of its banner. The sun writes it, the wind draws it, the universe decides its direction. In that sense, the tail is not just decoration, it is evidence of relationship. It shows us that Atlas, though alien, is subject to the same forces that bind us all. Pause and let that image drift through you. A haloed nucleus, a luminous veil, and from it, a tail stretching millions of kilometers into the void, faint but undeniable. In photographs, comets look sharp, defined. But in reality, the tail is diffuse, a mist of particles spread thinly across space. To fly through it would be like passing through smoke, soft, subtle, invisible, until sunlight strikes it just so. And always, the paradox, the tail points away. Not where the comet has come from, not where it is going, but always away from the star. To follow it backward is to be misled. To follow it forward is to chase a phantom. It is a reminder that appearances can deceive, that the truth of a path is not always written in the signs it leaves behind. For astronomers, watching the evolution of Atlas's tail is also a clock. As it nears the sun, the tail grows longer, brighter, more dynamic. As it recedes, the tail shrinks, fades, dissolves back into invisibility, a cycle of appearance and disappearance as old as comets themselves. And for dreamers, the tail is a metaphor. It is the evidence of pressure we cannot see. Just as the solar wind sculpts the comet's glow, so too do invisible forces sculpt us winds of circumstance, tides of history, currents of time. We, too, carry tales of a sort, memories, impressions, traces we leave in the lives of others. They do not always point where we intend. They do not always tell the story we think we're writing. But they are real, and they are luminous to those who notice. So, as you close your eyes tonight, imagine Atlas sweeping its tail outward, a cosmic banner written in dust and gas. Imagine that banner stretching across the darkness, pointing always away from the star, fragile yet immense, ephemeral yet radiant. The tail will not last. In a few months, in a few years, it will fade, gone with the traveler into the dark. But for now, it glows. For now, it tells us, here is a stranger, warmed by our sun, marked by our light, passing briefly through our sky. And for us, for this fleeting moment, that is enough. Space is vast, and yet it is never truly empty. Even in the blackest reaches between stars, there are fragments, dust, and sometimes, perhaps, companions. As astronomers track 3 are divided by Atlas along its hyperbolic path, they ask a natural question. Is it traveling alone, or does it move with silent company, fragments hidden in the dark? Comets are fragile things. They fracture easily. Heat, gravity, collisions, each can split a nucleus into shards. Sometimes, as with comet Shoemaker-Levy 9, those shards string themselves out like beads, following one another in orbit. Other times, a comet sheds small companions, dusty clumps, faint satellites that drift in its wake. With 3, I divided by Atlas, the possibility of such companions lingers. After all, it has traveled for ages through the galaxy, battered by time and silence. Could pieces have broken away? Could faint followers drift, just behind? Astronomers search for them carefully. Their telescopes sweep the regions around Atlas's glow, looking for smaller motes of light moving in tandem. Sometimes, the instruments detect anomalies, tiny points, that may be background stars, or perhaps fragments of the comet itself. The line between detection and imagination is fine, but the question persists. What if Atlas is not alone? For dreamers, this possibility is rich with metaphor. Picture the comet not as a solitary wanderer, but as a caravan, a nucleus at the front, glowing with its coma, and behind it, silent companions, small, faint, almost invisible, keeping pace. Perhaps they are shards from the comet's own body, splintered long ago. Perhaps they are unrelated fragments, caught by coincidence in similar paths. In either case, the image is haunting, a procession of strangers moving together through the dark. There is precedent. Many comets have split. Their tails sometimes reveal faint knots of brightness that mark smaller pieces traveling close. These companions are fragile, destined to fade or crumble. But for a moment, they exist. For a moment, they remind us that even in apparent solitude, there can be hidden company. Pause here, in the quiet of your own room, and imagine that view. Atlas, glowing faintly, its coma breathing outward, its tail stretched into space. And nearby fainter, still smaller sparks, fragments of ice and dust, following along like shadows, companions invisible to most eyes, but present nonetheless. It is a reminder that solitude, even across the deepest reaches of space, may not be absolute. Some scientists even speculate further. Could there be not just fragments, but other interstellar debris traveling in loose association? A cluster of objects cast off from the same star system, scattered yet loosely bound by their shared trajectory. If so, then Atlas is not a solitary messenger, but part of a broader diaspora, a family of fragments cast into the galaxy, some of which have now crossed our path. Even if no companions are ever confirmed, the idea lingers, because in the human mind, solitude is difficult to bear. We imagine company, even in the void. We see caravans where perhaps there is only one, and yet perhaps that instinct is not wrong. For in the galaxy, nothing exists in perfect isolation. Everything is connected by gravity, by light, by history. Even the loneliest comet is part of a larger story. As you drift deeper into rest, let yourself feel the weight of that idea. 3. I, divided by Atlas, dark and distant, may be accompanied by shards we cannot yet see. Or perhaps it is truly alone, yet still tied to its unseen home, still linked to the dust and gas that birthed it long ago. Companions in the dark are not always visible. Sometimes they are imagined, sometimes remembered, sometimes only felt, but they are there. And so we watch, we listen. We wonder if the next faint speck on our telescopes, the next subtle glimmer, is a companion of Atlas, keeping pace on its long escape. If so, then the comet is not only a stranger, but a procession, not only a visitor, but a chorus. And if not, if it is utterly alone, then still, its path through our sky is company enough. For a brief time, we share its journey. For a brief time, we are its companions. When we look at 3, I divided by Atlas, we see more than ice and dust. We see movement, an arc across the heavens, a path traced in silence. And in that motion, some wonder, is there a message? Not a message in words, not in deliberate design, but in the language of orbits and trajectories, in the rhythm of the cosmos itself. Every object in space tells a story with its motion. Planets trace predictable ellipses, loyal to the Sunday asteroid's wander, sometimes colliding, sometimes scattering. Comets loop and return, reminders of the system's ancient youth. But interstellar objects, like Atlas, are different. Their motion is not bound. Their path is not a closed circle, but a line from elsewhere. They are the punctuation marks of the galaxy, brief interruptions in an otherwise steady text. For astronomers, the message is scientific. The orbit of Atlas reveals its origin beyond our Sunday. Its hyperbolic curve is proof of exile, proof that this fragment does not belong here. The tilt of its approach, the angle of its departure, all of these carry information. They hint at the gravitational forces that shaped it, the star system that once held it. To read its orbit is to glimpse, however faintly, the broader architecture of the Milky Way. But for dreamers, the message is symbolic. What does it mean that such an object arrives now, that in the span of a single human decade, we have seen 3 such visitors? For billions of years, none were noticed. And suddenly, as our instruments sharpen and our awareness deepens, they appear. Perhaps they have always been there, unseen. Or perhaps we are living in a moment of opening, when the galaxy begins to reveal its messengers. Pause and imagine this. Atlas, sliding inward, glowing softly, tracing a path that cannot be repeated. Its motion is both chance and necessity. Chance, because it could easily have missed us by light years. Necessity, because gravity follows its own law, unyielding, guiding it along the arc we now observe. Out of all the infinite directions it could have traveled, its path crosses ours. That crossing is the message. It reminds us that we are not sealed off. The solar system is not isolated. We are part of a galactic tide. There is humility in that realization. Our Earth spins, our sun burns, and we often imagine ourselves at the center of significance. But the arrival of Atlas whispers otherwise. We are not central. We are a stop along the way, a brief intersection in a motion that began long before us and will continue long after. And yet, there is also wonder. For even if Atlas does not intend a message, even if it is only a fragment of ice following the blind laws of physics, we are here to witness it. We are here to ask questions, to trace its orbit, to speculate. In that act of noticing, meaning emerges. The message may not be carried by the comet itself. It may be carried by us, in the way we choose to interpret its passage. Think of the philosophers who once looked at the heavens and read omens in the comet's glow. To them, every bright visitor was a sign of change, of danger, of destiny. Today we no longer see comets as omens. We see them as data, and yet the old instinct remains. We still look upward and wonder if there is more to the motion than mechanics. We still long to hear a voice in the silence. For you, resting in the quiet, this can be a meditation. Imagine Atlas not as an accident, but as a gesture, a line drawn across the sky to remind you of scale, of impermanence, of connection. Imagine its orbit as a brushstroke in the painting of the cosmos, fleeting yet irreplaceable. Even if it says nothing, it speaks. Astronomers will continue to decode its path, refining predictions of its future course. It will leave the solar system behind, climbing outward into the black. In centuries to come, it will pass other stars, unnoticed again. But for us, here and now, it is a message in motion, a reminder of the vastness we inhabit and the beauty of encounters that cannot last. As you close your eyes, imagine tracing its curve with your hand, a line from the darkness, bending gently around the sun, then vanishing again into night. That is the comet's story. That is the message. Everything moves, everything passes, and in each passing there is meaning. And tomorrow, when you wake, the comet will still be moving, still carrying its silent message through the sky. When astronomers first measured the light of 3, I divided by Atlas, they expected it to behave predictably. Comets follow a familiar script. As they near the sun, they brighten. The heat warms their ices, gas erupts, dust reflects light, and the glow grows stronger. But Atlas has not always obeyed the script. Its brightness has been puzzling at times, stronger than models predicted, at times weaker, shimmering in ways that invite both wonder and confusion. Why does it shine this way? The puzzle of brightness begins with the nature of a comet itself. Unlike a polished sphere, a comet is irregular, lumpy, fractured. Its surface is patchy, some areas dense with ice, others crusted over, sealed. As sunlight touches it, the response is uneven. One side may flare, the other remains silent. The result is a glow that flickers, a brightness that defies simple curves on a chart. But Atlas adds a layer of mystery. Some nights, astronomers note a sudden surge, a flare of brightness that seems too dramatic for its distance from the sunday. Could it be that pockets of volatile ices, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, are bursting open, releasing jets of gas that scatter light more intensely? Or perhaps its nucleus is fractured, exposing fresh surfaces that shine more than expected. Each possibility carries its own implications. And then, there are the nights when Atlas dims. Not fades gently, but dims more than anticipated. Dust may be settling, forming a veil that blocks light. Fragments may have broken away, altering the reflective surface. Or perhaps the comet simply hides its luminous side from us as it tumbles, turning irregularly, showing different faces at different times. For astronomers, these fluctuations are both frustration and fascination. Predictions of brightness matter. They tell us how visible a comet will be, how much science we can gather, even how the public will experience it in the night sky. A comet brighter than expected can inspire millions, as Hale-Bopp did in the 1,990 seconds. A comet dimmer than hoped can slip into obscurity. Atlas straddles the line, teasing us with possibility, then retreating into faintness. For dreamers, though, this puzzle is a metaphor. Brightness is not always steady, not always predictable. We too flare unexpectedly, dim when least expected, shine differently, depending on what part of ourselves we turn outward. Atlas, in its wavering light, reminds us that visibility is fragile, that radiance is complex. Pause now, in your quiet room, and imagine the comet's glow, not a constant beacon, but a living shimmer. Some nights more luminous, some nights subdued. To follow its light is to follow a breathing rhythm, a pulse written in dust and gas. It is as though Atlas itself sighs, exhales, and hesitates alive in its own alien way. There is also a deeper puzzle. Astronomers note that Atlas, like Oumuamua before it, may not entirely match the expected brightness for its size. Oumuamua, too, was strange. It shone as though flat, its reflections inconsistent, its acceleration unexplained. Could Atlas also be hiding irregular shapes, hollow cavities, or structures we cannot imagine? If so, its brightness is not just data, it is a clue, a riddle to be solved. And yet, even if the mystery is never fully answered, the glow itself is gift enough. To see a comet from another star, even faintly, is a privilege. The photons that reach us from Atlas's coma are ancient travelers themselves, scattered from ices that formed in a nursery we will never visit. They carry with them the flavor of another world, translated into light. That is miracle enough, even if the brightness does not fit our charts. As you drift closer to rest, let this puzzle soothe you rather than trouble you. Imagine the comet shimmering faintly, unpredictably, like a lantern in fog. Its brightness rises and falls, its glow uneven, yet always present, always whispering across the void. The puzzle may never be solved completely, but perhaps the meaning is not in the solution, but in the act of watching, in the patience of noticing. Tomorrow night, astronomers will measure again. They will compare curves, refine models, debate theories. And tomorrow night, you too can remember that somewhere above, 3i divided by Atlas glows, sometimes bright, sometimes dim, always mysterious. A puzzle of brightness, a riddle written in light. And in that riddle, there is beauty. As 3i divided by Atlas drifts through our solar system, it passes giants. Not loudly, not with collisions or fireworks, but with silence encounters measured in millions of kilometers, yet meaningful in their own way. To imagine the path of Atlas is to imagine a visitor walking through a cathedral, moving quietly past towering pillars, each one immense, each one ancient. The planets are those pillars. The comet slips by, a whisper in their presence. The first of these encounters belongs to Mars. The red planet lies along Atlas's inbound path, and though the comet will not strike it, it will come closer to Mars than to Earth. Imagine the scene. The faint traveler gliding through the night sky of Mars, its tail streaming outward. If there were watchers on the Martian surface, astronauts of the future, or robotic eyes of today, they might look upward and see Atlas pass, a stranger glowing against the crimson horizon. For a moment, Mars becomes not just a desert world, but a balcony, a place from which to watch a galactic messenger sweep by. Later, Atlas draws nearer to Jupiter, the giant of giants. Jupiter's gravity is like a drumbeat in the solar system, shaping the orbits of comets, guiding the paths of asteroids. Many comets are captured or destroyed when they pass too near. But Atlas, moving too fast, will not be trapped. It will bend slightly, pulled by Jupiter's enormous presence, but then continue outward. Imagine that. The greatest planet, with storms larger than Earth, cannot hold this small fragment. Its freedom is written in its speed. Its hyperbolic path defies even Jupiter's grasp. These encounters are silent, but they are full of meaning. Astronomers watch them closely, calculating how each planet's gravity may alter the comet's trajectory, however slightly. Even a small tug can shift its future path by millions of kilometers. And so, each encounter writes a new chapter in the comet's journey, even if the planets themselves remain indifferent, silent, vast. Pause here and let yourself feel the scale. Mars and Jupiter are worlds beyond imagination. Mars, a frozen desert, its thin atmosphere tinged with rust. Jupiter, a gas giant, its clouds swirling in storms centuries old, and between them, a tiny comet from another star. The contrast is staggering, immensity beside fragility, permanence beside transience, and yet, in that contrast, there is harmony. For both the planets and the comet are part of the same cosmic dance, each moving as gravity dictates, each telling its story in silence. From Earth, we will never see these encounters directly. They will happen far away, invisible to our eyes. But knowing they occur is enough to stir wonder. The idea that Atlas will sweep past Mars, will feel Jupiter's pull, connects us to those worlds. It reminds us that the solar system is not just ours. It is a stage, and visitors from beyond are allowed to cross it. For dreamers, these silent encounters are metaphors of presence. How often do we pass others without words, only in silence, yet still feel the gravity of their existence? Atlas does this with planets. It does not speak, it does not collide, it only passes near. But in that passing, something changes. Its orbit bends, its story shifts. Encounters need not be loud to leave their mark. And for you, lying here in the quiet, this can be a gentle meditation. Imagine yourself as Atlas, moving through life, brushing past others. Some meetings are close, some distant, but each leaves a trace. Sometimes you are like Mars, watching silently as something rare crosses your sky. Sometimes you are like Jupiter, immense in influence, altering paths without even trying. The universe writes these metaphors as surely as it writes orbits. In the end, Atlas will leave them all behind. Mars will remain, cold and red. Jupiter will continue its endless storms. The comet will move on, never to return. Yet for a moment, their stories overlapped. For a moment, their paths touched in silence. And perhaps that is the message of these encounters. Not all meetings are forever. Some are brief, some wordless, some gone before we even realize their importance. But all leave traces. All bend us, however slightly, into new directions. As you drift towards sleep, let that thought soothe you. Out there, beyond our sight, a stranger comet is passing planets in silence. It leaves no explosion, no noise, only the quiet reshaping of paths. And as you rest, you too are part of that same cosmos, shaped by encounters, moved by forces unseen, carried onward along your own arc. Silent encounters, brief but real. Silent encounters, like whispers between stars. For as long as humans have gazed at the night sky, comets have been seen as messengers. Once they were omens, feared as harbingers of change. Today we understand them as icy remnants of creation, drifting archives of matter. But even now, a deeper question lingers. Could comets be seeds? Could they carry the raw ingredients of life across the stars? With 3I divided by Atlas, that question takes on new resonance. This comet is not ours. It was not born in the swirling disk that birthed Earth, Mars, and Jupiter. Its ices were forged around another star, under another Sunday. And now, carried across light years, those ices are evaporating into our solar system. In its vapor, in its dust, in its faint glow, lies the chemistry of another world. Scientists call this idea panspermia, the possibility that life, or at least its building blocks, may travel between worlds, between systems, even between stars, not as living creatures in spaceships, but as molecules carried in frozen vaults. Amino acids, sugars, complex organics, the alphabet of biology drifting across the galaxy, waiting for a suitable shore on which to land. Evidence hints at this possibility. Meteorites that have fallen to Earth contain amino acids, molecules essential to life. Comets, within our own solar system, have revealed organic compounds when sampled by probes. Even the famous Rosetta mission, which followed Comet 67P, divided by Churyumov-Gerasimenko, detected glycine, one of the simplest amino acids, along with other organic molecules. If comets born here can carry such seeds, why not comets born elsewhere? And so, 3I, divided by Atlas, becomes not just a visitor, but a question embodied in ice. What seeds does it carry? Its coma may contain molecules we know, or molecules we have never seen before. Its dust may hold the fingerprints of a chemistry alien to our own. For astronomers, every spectral line is a clue. For dreamers, every shimmer is a possibility. Pause for a moment and imagine this comet as a dandelion seed floating across the galaxy. Its long stem is the hyperbolic path. Its delicate parachute is the coma and tail. Its kernel, the nucleus, is small but rich, containing everything needed to start something new if it finds the right soil. Perhaps Earth itself was once seeded by such a fragment, long before human eyes could watch the skies. Perhaps life on our planet is not unique, but part of a larger web of galactic exchange. Of course, not all scientists agree. Some argue that life's chemistry is robust enough to arise independently on any wet world. Others say the journey between stars is too harsh for delicate molecules to survive. Radiation, time, collisions, all work against the preservation of seeds. But then again, life itself has proven resilient beyond expectation. Bacteria survive in vacuum, spores endure radiation, extremophiles thrive in places we thought impossible. Why should we assume the galaxy has not been planting seeds all along? To you, lying quietly now, this is a comforting thought, that the universe may not be silent and barren, but generous. That every comet is a gift, a possibility, a gesture of sharing across impossible distances. Even if Atlas brings no life, it brings the idea of life. Even if it carries only dust, that dust was once part of a star system we will never touch. In that sense, it already enriches us. Imagine now that Atlas's dust, carried outward by the solar wind, drifts across space for centuries. Some grains may fall into Jupiter's atmosphere and burn. Some may wander through interplanetary space until they are caught by Earth's gravity, falling as meteors in some future night. When they strike the atmosphere, they will flare, and perhaps a molecule born under another sun will touch our air. Not enough to change the world, but enough to remind us, we are part of a greater whole. And what if, in some distant future, fragments of Atlas find their way to another planet, one still forming, one with oceans waiting? What if those molecules sink into warm pools, where chemistry sparks into biology? Then Atlas would not only be a visitor, it would be a sower, a gardener of stars, scattering seeds across the galaxy. As you drift closer to sleep, let this image linger. A small comet from afar, glowing softly, its halo of dust expanding, its seeds scattering into space. Most will vanish, burned, broken, lost. But a few may endure, a few may land, a few may grow. 3 I, divided by Atlas, may never speak in words. It may never reveal its birthplace or purpose. But in its dust, in its whispers of ice, it may carry the most ancient story of all, that life is not a solitary flame, but a fire that longs to spread. And tonight, as you breathe slowly, remember, we are part of that fire. Perhaps we too are seeds from afar. From the beginning, astronomers have called 3 I, divided by Atlas, a comet. The word feels safe, familiar. A comet is ice and dust, a fragment from some distant nursery of stars. Yet as they measure its brightness, chart its path, and compare it to other interstellar visitors, a question begins to emerge, quiet but insistent. What if it is more than that? What if it is an object beyond objects, something that challenges the very categories we use to describe the cosmos? We have been here before. Oumuamua, the first interstellar visitor, puzzled astronomers precisely because it refused to fit cleanly into our boxes. It was not a typical asteroid, not a typical comet. It showed no tail, yet it accelerated slightly, as if outgassing unseen material. Its shape seemed elongated, improbable. Its brightness flickered in ways that suggested a geometry unlike any rock we had ever studied. Some whispered the unthinkable. Could it be artificial? Could it be debris from an ancient civilization, a fragment of technology cast into the void? Those whispers faded, but they left behind a haunting possibility that not every interstellar traveler is what it seems. Borisov, the second visitor, reassured us by looking more conventional, a comet through and through. But now Atlas arrives, and the question stirs again. Its coma glows, its tail streams, its chemistry seems comet-like, and yet there are anomalies, brightness shifts, possible irregularities in shape, behaviors that are not entirely predicted. Once again, the categories strain. What if Atlas is not only a comet, but something stranger? Could it be a fragment of a shattered planet, flung into interstellar exile? Could it be a remnant of a collision so ancient we cannot trace its origin? Could it be an object we do not yet have a name for, carrying within it materials our solar system has never known? Pause here and let your imagination stretch. The universe is old. Stars live and die. Planets form and shatter. Civilizations may rise and fall. What drifts between the stars could be anything. We call Atlas a comet because that is the shape it most resembles, but resemblance is not identity. Perhaps it is a hybrid, an ice-rock metal puzzle, part familiar, part alien. Perhaps its heart is hollow, its structure porous like a sponge, making it lighter than it should be. Or perhaps its chemistry is so unusual that when sunlight touches it, reactions flare in ways we have never modeled. And yes, for the boldest dreamers, the question of intelligence returns. If a civilization existed around a distant star, could it have sent fragments, probes, artifacts, emissaries that wander still? To entertain such an idea is not to abandon science, but to remind ourselves that science begins with curiosity. Even if Atlas is nothing more than ice, it forces us to ask whether the galaxy might contain more than ice. For astronomers, the task is careful. They measure, model, test. They resist speculation, because speculation must bow to evidence. But for you, lying here in quiet, you are free to let the mind wander. Imagine Atlas not as an inert fragment, but as a vessel. Imagine it carrying within its nucleus patterns, information, even messages written in molecules. Imagine it as a cosmic bottle, drifting across oceans of time, carrying a note from one shore of the galaxy to another. Even if none of this is true, even if it is only a comet, the wonder remains. For to confront an object we cannot fully categorize is to be reminded of the limits of our knowing. Atlas is a teacher in that sense. It whispers, "The universe is wider than your boxes, stranger than your categories, richer than your expectations." And perhaps that is what an object beyond objects truly means. Not necessarily artificial, not necessarily magical, but simply more complex than we can reduce. A reminder that the cosmos does not fit neatly into our words, that beyond asteroid and comet, beyond familiar and foreign, there is something larger, something nameless. As you drift towards sleep, hold this thought gently. Atlas glides through our system, not to be explained away, but to be experienced. Its glow, its tail, its whispers of dust, all are invitations to humility. You do not need to know exactly what it is to be awed by its presence. So imagine it now, a nucleus cloaked in light, an object beyond objects, slipping past Mars, bending past Jupiter, carrying secrets we may never decode. It enters, it shines, it leaves. And in its passing, it teaches us to wonder again. Whenever something new appears in the sky, especially when it comes from beyond our solar system, theories bloom like wildflowers. Some are grounded in science, careful and measured. Others drift further, into speculation, into dreams. With 3, I divided by Atlas, the pattern repeats. Astronomers bring their models and instruments. Dreamers bring their questions. And together, these voices weave a tapestry of possibility. The first theory is the most natural. Atlas is a comet, plain and simple. Its coma glows, its tail streams. Its chemistry is consistent with ices warmed by sunlight. This fits neatly into our understanding. A fragment of another star system, ejected long ago, now passing briefly through ours. To scientists, this explanation is satisfying. It grounds Atlas in the familiar. But even within this framework, mysteries remain. Why does its brightness fluctuate? Why do its gases emerge in irregular bursts? These are puzzles, even if the comet itself is ordinary. The second theory is more daring, that Atlas might be a fragment of something larger. Perhaps it was once part of a planetesimal, a small world forming around another Sunday. Perhaps it was shattered in a collision, its pieces flung outward. If true, then Atlas is more than a comet, it is debris from the birth and death of worlds. To touch its dust is to touch the ruins of a foreign planet, a reminder that creation and destruction are endless companions. A third theory whispers of strangeness. What if Atlas is not natural at all? When Oumuamua puzzled astronomers in 2017 with its strange acceleration and odd shape, some dared to suggest it could be artificial, a probe, a relic, a fragment of alien engineering. Could Atlas carry the same possibility? Most scientists dismiss this idea, cautious of sensational claims. Yet in the public imagination, it lingers. To think that the glow we see could hide machinery, intention, even message it, is a dream almost irresistible. Others propose still wilder ideas. Perhaps Atlas is a piece of dark matter clumped in unusual ways, masquerading as a comet. Perhaps it is a shard of exotic chemistry unknown in our system, carrying compounds that will surprise our instruments. Perhaps it is a time capsule from another civilization, designed to last eons, traveling silently until discovered. None of these are likely, yet none can be fully dismissed. Not yet, not while questions remain. Pause here and let your mind wander with them. Imagine Atlas as a probe, a wanderer built by hands or minds beyond our imagination. Imagine it carrying information in patterns of ice, in the geometry of its dust. Imagine that by studying it, we are already reading a message, even if we cannot yet decipher it. Or imagine it as a relic of a shattered world, its molecules still echoing with the memory of alien oceans. Even in the absence of such wonders, the wild dreams serve a purpose. They remind us that science is not just about answers, but about questions. Theories are boundaries. Dreams push those boundaries outward. Without imagination, discovery would stall. Without daring, we would never notice anomalies at all. Atlas inspires both. It grounds us in observation, and it invites us to imagine beyond. Astronomers remain cautious. They remind us that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, that speculation must not run too far ahead of data. Yet even they allow themselves a moment of wonder. To stand under the night sky, to point a telescope at a faint glow from another star, is to feel the limits of certainty. Theories are tools, but dreams are necessary companions. For you, lying in the quiet, this is an invitation. Let Atlas be what you need it to be. A comet, yes, a fragment of another star's nursery, a seed perhaps, carrying the building blocks of life. Or even, in your dreams, a messenger, a deliberate visitor carrying secrets from afar. In sleep, you are free to let the possibilities unfold. Theories and wild dreams are not enemies, they are partners. Science holds the map, dreams draw the horizon. Together, they guide us toward wonder. And so, Atlas continues on its path, glowing faintly, trailing its veil of dust. Scientists measure, dreamers imagine. And in that dance between data and desire, we find the heart of discovery itself. For now, No theory is complete. No dream is proven. But the comet moves, and we follow charting, speculating, wondering. And perhaps that is the truest message of all, that the universe will always leave room for theories, and always leave space for wild dreams. When we think of a comet, we imagine light, the glowing coma, the streaming tail, the sparkle of dust, reflecting the sunday. But in truth, every comet is also a story of darkness. Not only the darkness it emerges from, but the darkness it helps us see. And with 3 divided by Atlas, the shadows are as important as the glow. Astronomers know that interstellar visitors are not just curiosities. They are test particles, probes sent by nature itself, moving along paths that cut across invisible structures. As Atlas bends through our solar system, it reveals more than its own chemistry. It reveals the background against which it moves. Gravity, dark matter, the unseen fabric of the galaxy, all leave their imprint on its trajectory. Dark matter is one of the great mysteries of our age. We cannot see it, cannot touch it, but its presence is undeniable. Galaxies spin faster than their visible mass should allow. Stars orbit invisible scaffolds. Something unseen binds the cosmos. And when interstellar objects like Atlas sweep in, they become tracers, like fireflies in a forest, revealing the shapes of things we cannot see directly. The curve of its hyperbolic orbit is drawn not only by the Sun, but by the larger mass of the Milky Way, much of it hidden in shadow. Pause and imagine that. A tiny comet, only kilometers across, carrying in its path the fingerprints of forces vast beyond measure. Its glow we see, but its motion whispers of the invisible. To follow Atlas is to read a page of the dark book of the universe. But there is another kind of darkness, revealed not cosmic, but human. For centuries, comets were feared. Their sudden appearances, their eerie glow, were interpreted as omens. They revealed the darkness of our anxieties, the way we projected fear onto the unknown. Even now, though science has tamed our dread, a part of that unease remains. Headlines speak of terrifying visitors. Stories frame them as threats. Atlas, glowing faintly in the night, reflects back to us the shadow of our own imagination, the darkness we carry within. And yet, not all darkness is menace. There is beauty in it too. Without darkness, the coma would not shine. Without shadow, we could not see the halo. Atlas reminds us that light and darkness are not enemies but partners. The void between the stars is not empty, despair, but the stage upon which every glimmer plays. Its darkness is the canvas of wonder. For astronomers, the study of Atlas is a balance between light and dark. They read its spectrum to find molecules, but they also map its orbit to probe unseen mass. They study the way its tail bends, searching for subtle hints of the solar wind's invisible currents. In each case, the visible reveals the invisible, the glow pointing toward the shadow. For dreamers, the lesson is simpler. Darkness is not absence, it is depth. It is the space in which meaning emerges. Just as Atlas comes to life only when sunlight touches it, so too do we shine against the backdrop of what is hidden. Our lives, like comets, are part glow and part shadow. Both tell our story. So as you rest now, imagine Atlas gliding silently, its coma faint, its tail drawn away from the Sunday around it. The darkness of space stretches without end. Yet in that darkness, the comet's glow becomes meaningful. It reveals what is otherwise unseen. It whispers that shadows are not empty, but full of structure, full of secrets, full of hidden strength. And, in your own quiet darkness, remember, the glow you carry is framed by the shadows around you. Both matter, both reveal. Atlas, the stranger, moves on. Its light will fade, but the darkness it reveals in the galaxy, in ourselves, will remain. To study a comet like 3, I divided by Atlas, is not only to look at its glow, but to listen to the silence it carries, to the faint signals it releases into the void. Because the truth is, most of what it is remains hidden. The nucleus is shrouded. The dust is scattered. The path is vast. What astronomers receive are whispers, faint echoes, clues half buried in noise. Studying Atlas is an act of patience, a listening more than a seeing. The silence begins with distance. Even at its brightest, Atlas is no more than a faint smudge on a telescope sensor. No naked eye will ever behold it clearly. To find it requires long exposures, careful subtraction of background stars, delicate teasing out of signal from shadow. The silence is not absence, but difficulty. The comet is speaking softly, and we must quiet ourselves to hear. Astronomers use every tool they have. They split its faint light into spectra, searching for lines that reveal chemicals. They measure its brightness night by night, tracing curves that hint at changes within. They model its orbit, refining predictions as each observation adds a fraction of precision. Yet even with all this, so much remains unknown. Is its nucleus fractured? Are there companions in its trail? What is the exact ratio of its ices? The silence does not yield easily, but perhaps this is fitting, because silence itself is part of the message. In a universe that often overwhelms us with brilliant supernovae, galaxies, the blinding light of stars Atlas reminds us that the faintest voices also matter. That to understand the cosmos, we must not only look for the spectacular, but also attend to the quiet. Pause here as you lie in stillness. Imagine astronomers across Earth, staring at screens that show only tiny dots, faint lines, almost nothing at all. Yet within that almost nothing lies meaning. The silence of Atlas is like the silence between musical notes, the stillness that makes the sound possible. There is humility in this kind of listening. For centuries, we imagined the cosmos speaking loudly to us, comets as omens, planets as signs. Now we know the truth is subtler. The universe does not shout. It murmurs, it drifts, it leaves faint traces, and it asks us to be attentive. Atlas is a perfect example, a traveler that will never return, visible only briefly, and even then, barely. We must listen carefully, or its story will pass unheard. And still, in that silence, we find wonder. Radio telescopes tune their ears to the faint plasma tails, the interactions of ions with the solar wind. Infrared instruments search for warmth too faint for eyes. Photometers count photons one by one, gathering signals across hours of exposure. These are acts of devotion, patient listening. Each piece of data is like a heartbeat captured in the stillness. For dreamers, the silence is not only scientific, it is symbolic. Silence is the space in which imagination blooms. The comet does not tell us everything about itself. It leaves room for us to wonder. Is it simply a comet or something stranger? What secrets does it carry? Its silence invites our questions, invites our stories. And perhaps that is the lesson. That silence is not empty. It is fertile. It is the pause before revelation, the canvas upon which meaning is painted. Atlas, by refusing to reveal itself completely, keeps us awake, keeps us listening. So as you drift towards sleep, imagine yourself in an observatory, headphones on, listening to static. At first, nothing but hiss. Then, in that hiss, a faint fluctuation, a rhythm, a whisper. That is Atlas. Not a loud signal, not a blinding flare, but a murmur in the noise. To hear it, you must be still. To hear it, you must trust that silence too has something to say. And tomorrow, astronomers will listen again. They will sift through faint data, searching for new clues. They may not find certainty, but they will find wonder. For in listening to Atlas's silence, we are also listening to the silence of the universe itself, the vast, eternal hush in which all stories unfold. Every comet carries with it not only light, but fragility. They are not worlds like planets, held together by gravity and weight. They are fragile bodies, loose mixtures of ice, dust, and rock, bound only lightly. And so, whenever one approaches the sun, astronomers watch with a quiet question in their hearts. Will it survive, or will it fall apart before our eyes? 3. I divided by Atlas too, lives under that shadow of uncertainty. Already, in the history of astronomy, we have seen many comets fragment. Some break into pieces when they near the sun, their frozen cores unable to withstand the heat. Others crumble under the pull of gravity as they sweep too close to a planet or star. Even from interstellar space, no comet is immune to fragility. Imagine the nucleus of Atlas, dark, irregular, perhaps riddled with cracks. For ages, it has been frozen, unchanged. Now, as sunlight pours onto it, stresses build. Ice expands, fractures deepen. Jets erupt through weak spots, carving fissures deeper still. It is a delicate balance. Too much pressure, and the comet may not remain whole. In a single night, it could split, its glow scattering into fragments. Astronomers know this possibility well. They remember Comet Ison, which in 2013 grew bright with promise, then disintegrated as it passed too near the Sunday. They remember Shoemaker, Levy 9, torn apart by Jupiter's gravity before plunging into the giant planet in a chain of fire. They know that the life of a comet is precarious. Each approach to a star is both revelation and risk. For 3, I divided by Atlas. The risk is even greater. This is its first encounter with our sun, perhaps its first encounter with any star since leaving its birthplace. It has not been weathered by repeated visits. It has not built the crust of dust that older comets sometimes form, a shield against heat. It is fresh, raw, vulnerable. In that vulnerability lies both its brilliance and its danger. Pause here and consider the metaphor. Visitors, in life as in the cosmos, are often fragile. They appear suddenly, shining with presence, but they may vanish just as suddenly. Some encounters last a lifetime. Others crumble before we have time to understand them. Atlas reminds us of this truth. Its path is certain, but its survival is not. Its fragility is part of its story. And yet, even if it breaks, even if it disintegrates into dust, that too is a kind of gift. The fragments would still carry its chemistry. The dust would still scatter into our solar system, glowing briefly before fading. The comet's end would not be silence, but transformation. In breaking, it would reveal itself more fully than ever before. Astronomers watch closely, measuring brightness each night, searching for signs of instability. A sudden surge may mean a fracture. A dimming may mean collapse. Every change in light could be the beginning of the end. And still, they watch with patience, knowing that even if Atlas does not endure, its story will be worth telling. For dreamers, the fragility is part of the wonder. It makes the encounter precious. If Atlas were eternal, unchanging, its glow would be less meaningful. But because it may vanish, because its survival is uncertain, its light becomes more tender, more poignant. To see it, even faintly, is to witness something that might never be again. So as you rest now, imagine Atlas not as a sturdy rock, but as a delicate sculpture of ice, fragile and beautiful, drifting through sunlight. Each beam of light threatens to undo it, even as it makes it visible. Its tail streams outward, luminous but impermanent. Its coma glows, but may collapse, and all of it together is a reminder. Beauty is often fragile. Encounters are often brief. The fragility of visitors is not something to fear. It is something to cherish. Atlas may survive. It may not. Either way, its passage enriches us. Either way, it leaves traces, data, dust, wonder. And perhaps that is the final lesson. Visitors, whether comets or people, are not defined by how long they stay, but by the light they bring while they are here. Everything that enters our lives eventually leaves. This is a truth so simple, so constant, that we often resist it. Yet the universe whispers it again and again, in the arcs of planets, in the fading of stars, and now, in the brief passage of 3, divided by Atlas. The comet is not here to stay. Its orbit tells us so. Its glow, fragile and fleeting, reminds us. Impermanence is the fabric of existence. Astronomers see this truth in numbers. The hyperbolic path of Atlas guarantees that it will not return. Its speed is too great, its trajectory too open. It will pass near the sun, it will shine for a season, and then it will fade into the dark, never to be seen again. For those who watch the skies, this is bittersweet. To study an interstellar visitor is to hold a gift that cannot be kept. But impermanence is not a curse. It is what gives meaning to the moment. If Atlas were eternal, always visible, always present, it would become ordinary, unnoticed. Instead, its rarity makes it precious. Its passing reminds us that beauty is not always in permanence, but in the fragile bloom of time. The comet teaches us to notice, to cherish, to marvel before it is gone. Think of the coma that surrounds it bright now, expansive, a veil of dust and vapor. Soon it will thin, soon it will collapse back into silence. The tail that sweeps outward, luminous against the void, will scatter into nothing. Even the nucleus itself, if it survives, will vanish from our reach, drifting into starless dark. All of it reminds us, nothing lasts forever, and that is not sadness, but truth. Pause for a moment, lying quietly. Reflect on the visitors in your own life, moments, people, places that came and went. Some left gently, some abruptly, some faded like comas thinning in the dark. Others burned brightly, then shattered, scattering fragments across your memory. Each, in its impermanence, shaped you. Each taught you something. Atlas mirrors this. A visitor not meant to stay, but meant to remind. Even the grandest structures of the cosmos obey impermanence. Stars live for billions of years, but they too fade. Galaxies collide and dissolve. Even black holes, once thought eternal, will evaporate across unfathomable spans of time. Nothing escapes the law of impermanence. And yet, within that law, there is continuity. The dust of stars becomes the soil of new worlds. The fragments of comets become the seeds of life. The ending of one story becomes the beginning of another. Perhaps this is Atlas's greatest gift. Not its glow, not its mysteries, but its reminder that fleeting things are meaningful, that we are shaped not by what endures forever, but by what passes briefly through. A comet is an impermanent teacher, but its lesson lingers long after it is gone. Astronomers will continue to watch until the last moment. They will measure brightness as it fades, track its position until it vanishes, and then, one night, the data will show only stars. The comet will be gone. For some, this will bring melancholy, but for others, it will bring awe that we were here, alive in this moment, when a traveler from another star graced our skies. For you, resting now, let this lesson ease you. Impermanence is not loss, but rhythm. Just as the comet comes and goes, so do our seasons, our days, our lives. To fight it is to suffer. To accept it is to find peace. 3. I, divided by Atlas, by appearing only once, invites us to accept the fleeting as beautiful. So as you close your eyes, imagine the comet gliding outward, fading into distance, its coma thinning, its tail dissolving, its nucleus swallowed by the dark. It is leaving, yes, but it has given us its light, its whispers, its wonder, and in that gift, impermanence itself becomes luminous. Atlas is a visitor, fragile, fleeting, impermanent, but it teaches us that impermanence is not emptiness, it is the essence of beauty. Every story has an ending, and for 3, I divided by Atlas, the ending is departure. It entered our solar system as a whisper, a faint glow at the edge of awareness. It lingered for a brief season, revealing fragments of itself, ice, dust, motion, silence. And now, it prepares to leave, to slip once more into the vastness between stars. We are left with memory, data, and wonder. Astronomers will track it until they cannot. Night after night, telescopes will strain, following the faint smudge as it grows dimmer. Numbers will be recorded, graphs extended, orbits refined. And then, one night, Atlas will be gone. Not gone in truth, it will still exist, still travel, but gone to us, invisible, unreachable, beyond the reach of our instruments and our eyes. There is melancholy in this farewell. To watch something so rare and know it will never return is to feel the smallness of our own time. Oumuamua passed us once. Borisov passed us once. Atlas does the same. Each visitor is unique, each departure final. The sky feels larger for their passing, but also emptier. And yet, there is also gratitude. For in its short visit, Atlas gave us more than data. It gave us perspective. It reminded us that the galaxy is not static, that matter moves, that stories cross. It taught us to wonder about origins we cannot see, about chemistry we may never touch, about paths that are both fleeting and eternal. In that sense, Atlas is not leaving us empty-handed. It is leaving us with questions, and questions are the seeds of discovery. Pause here and imagine the comet gliding outward, its coma thinning, its tail dissolving, its nucleus darkening once more. Soon it will be what it was for ages, invisible, silent, alone in the interstellar dark. But imagine, too, that somewhere in the future it will pass another star. Perhaps another civilization will see it, measure it, wonder at it, as we have. In this way, Atlas is not just ours. It belongs to the galaxy. For dreamers, this farewell is more than astronomy. It is a meditation on impermanence. Every encounter, every visitor in our lives is temporary. We cannot hold them forever. We can only notice them, cherish them, and let them go. Atlas is a cosmic mirror of this truth. It arrives, it glows, it departs. Its lesson is not to cling, but to marvel while we can. As you breathe softly, let the image of Atlas drift with you. A wanderer from afar, bowing once at the sun, then turning away, never to return. Imagine yourself standing on Earth, watching its faint light fade into the distance. There is sadness, yes, but there is also peace, for the comet has done what it came to do, not by design, but by existence. It has passed through, and in passing, it has reminded us of the vastness we inhabit and the brevity that gives it meaning. And so we say, farewell, not with regret, but with gratitude. Farewell to the wanderer. Farewell to the stranger, who became, for a moment, part of our story. Farewell to the light that glowed against our night, fragile and fleeting, yet unforgettable. The universe will send others, more visitors will come, more stories will unfold, but none will be exactly this one. Atlas is unique, irreplaceable, and now departing. Sleep now, with that thought. Sleep knowing that the cosmos is alive with motion, that wanderers pass through, that impermanence is not emptiness but beauty. Sleep with the farewell of Atlas echoing gently in your dreams. For tomorrow, the sky will be different. And in that difference, the wonder will continue.